Hi. There's been something on my mind a lot lately, and it just so happens to coincide with this latest act of tragedy in Orlando. But the reality is that if nothing in our country changes, the relevancy of this message will continue to crop up every few months or so if we just decide to do nothing. I want to be clear about this. This is not a political video. I'm not advocating for or against any particular candidate. Although I do think it's absolutely shameful the way that some in political office have tried to capitalize on this tragedy to further a political agenda or to stay in the public eye. Also, this is not a video against a particular religion. My own beliefs and personal understandings of Islam aside, that's a different issue for a different time. It seems that with every new tragedy that crops up into the public eye, it gets bundled together with a myriad of other issues. Whenever something bad happens, whenever some new tragedy comes, people utilize that as an opportunity to insert unwanted personal opinions into the discussion, and they detour the conversation away from where it needs to be, and they redirect us away from the truth of what's actually going on. I think it's absolutely shameful. I want to be clear, too, about my own beliefs, that I am an evangelical Christian and I wholeheartedly believe the Bible's teaching when it comes to same-sex marriages. However, that in absolutely no way diminishes my profound grief felt at what happened in Orlando. My most heartfelt sympathies go out to the families of the victims in that awful shooting. I don't think that anybody should be discriminated against because of their lifestyle choice or sexual orientation. And I absolutely believe that nobody's life should be ended on account of bigotry. When things like this happen, though, something interesting does happen. It brings forth our nation's collective beliefs as to why we think acts of violence like this happen. And we want to make the conversation about the ability to get guns, or maybe misconceptions about religious beliefs, or even odder still, immigrants. The truth is that I think there's an underlying current to each one of these acts of homegrown terrorism. I think that there is a common theme, a common strand across all of these, and I think it's actually much simpler than we've been making it out to be. I believe that the chief issue is simply a lack of moral character. You've heard it said before that guns don't kill people, people kill people. It's such a cliche at this point. We've heard it hundreds of times. However, it doesn't diminish the truth of that very simple saying. A firearm without a finger to pull the trigger just lies inanimate and useless. It's unable to actually harm anybody. And the truth is that when some people want to take another person's life, that guns are just sometimes the tool utilized to perpetrate these acts of evil. Sadly, in America, I do think, like in so many other places in the world, we are at a massive moral deficit. We become a nation that believes in so many things, we effectively believe in nothing. Church attendance is at an all-time low, and people's perception of God and Christianity have strayed very, very far from the truth of what the actual scriptures say. When we're told that truth is what you make it, and that morality is subjective, there is something incredibly dangerous in there. When basically we're telling people that in order to lead a good life, you just need to pick a system of morality that works for you and follow that. But there's something wrong with that, and that is that as people and as judges of morality, we pretty much suck at that. If you want proof, there's a really simple children's example. Get a bunch of people in a room, tell them to close their eyes, spin around in a circle, and tell them to point to due north. When everyone opens up their eyes, you're going to see that everyone's pointing in pretty much a different direction. So the question is, if we're really terrible magnetic compasses, what on earth makes us think that somehow we're all good moral compasses? It's no secret that homegrown acts of terror and violence are on a massive rise in our country. All the meanwhile, pew seats are going unfilled come Sunday mornings. The media would have you believe that Christians are hate-spewing, backwards thinking, science-denying idiots who just live in a bubble of our own ignorance. The unfortunate truth is that sometimes the church hasn't done a lot to dissuade people of that opinion. As somebody who is a Christian and identifies with that body of believers, I want to apologize on behalf of churches everywhere. We don't always do a very good job of that. I'm sorry. We're trying to do better, and we will do better. That said, I believe with absolute conviction that the morality and the principles taught by Jesus Christ are going to be the only thing that save us. They're going to be the only thing that makes a difference. However much we want to confuse Christianity, however many misconceptions there are about it, it basically boils down to two very simple things. First is to love God with every fiber of your being all the time, to love him with your heart, with your mind, with your strength, and with your spirit. And the second is the golden rule. This is the one that so many people love, even non-believers, because it's the one that tells us to treat people around us with equality. The golden rule says, love your neighbor as yourself. And when Jesus was going around speaking and telling stories and performing miracles, somebody came up to him and asked, trying to test Jesus, who is my neighbor? In the book of Luke, chapter 10, verses 25 through 37, Jesus gives him what is now known as the famous parable of the Good Samaritan. And that beautiful story illustrates that a neighbor is somebody who acts in mercy for the good of somebody else, regardless of religious affiliation, personal conviction, or ethnicity or background identity. That's what a good neighbor is, somebody that proactively acts in mercy. Now, those are basically it. Those are the two principles of Christianity. Love God enough to do what he says, and love others enough to move you to action. That's it at its pure basics. That's all that it is. God tells us to love our neighbors so much that it calls us to a life of proactive action and mercy. In fact, the scriptures even take it a step further. In Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 through 4, it says this, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. If we just follow these simple principles, if we love God the way that we should, then we will see his creation as unique and beautiful and wonderfully made, regardless of lifestyle choice or sexual orientation. And if we love other people like a good neighbor, then our primary concern will be that their needs are being seen to and that they feel loved, that we do these things without any expectation of reward. And you watching this, regardless of what you believe, your religious or non-religious affiliations, I want you to know this with an absolute certainty that there is a God and he does love you. He absolutely does. His purpose for our life is that we would follow him, that we would acknowledge him for who he is and follow the standards that he set for our life. He wants us to love everybody around us and to be, again, proactive in our mercy and compassion no matter what. If we continue to believe that the only way these tragedies are going to change is by enacting some new law or legislation, if we think that it's just about getting the wrong people out of the country, or if we think that we can just keep shifting the blame and having these conversations over and over again until the next big thing comes up and distracts us, then we're wrong. We're foolish and we're wrong. What's going to stop mass murders will be a restoration of a moral center. And if we really believe that we can reach this ideal utopian society just by positive thinking and encouraging memes, we're so far off base. I don't know about you, but I am so ready for this latest mass act of violence to be our last. Aren't you?